Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week does indeed mark 6 months since the avoidable and tragic fire at Grenfell Tower, which took the lives of 71 people and injured and traumatised many more, and I too will be at the service tomorrow in memory of them. But that fire also shone a light on the neglect of working-class communities all over this country. And since this government came to power, homelessness is up by 50%. Rough sleeping has doubled. Homelessness and rough sleeping have risen every single year since 2010. Will the Prime Minister pledge today that 2018 will be the year when homelessness starts to go down?
Across this House, we don't want to see anybody who is homeless or anybody who is sleeping rough on our streets. That is why the government is putting £500 million into the question of homelessness. It's why we backed the bill that was brought forward by my honourable friend, the member for for Harrow, and it's why we have ensured that we are putting into place a number of projects that will deal with this issue of rough sleeping. But I have to say to the right honourable gentleman that when we look at the question of housing, we need to look at ensuring that there are more homes available to people, that we are giving people support to get into those homes. That's why, in the budget, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, set out a whole range of ways in which we will be helping people to ensure that they have their own roof over their heads, compared to Labour, where house building went down by 45%. Where the number of homes bought and sold went down by 40%, and social housing went down by 400,000.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, the last Labour government cut homelessness by 2/3 during its time in office. When Labour left office, the number of children in temporary accommodation was a lot less than it is now. Yep. I asked the Prime Minister for a pledge to reduce the amount of homelessness next year. The pledge was not forthcoming. Yep. 128,000 children will spend Christmas without a home to call their own, 60% up on 2010. It's too late for this Christmas. But will the Prime Minister promise that by Christmas 2018, fewer children will be without a home to call their own?
Say to the right honourable gentleman again that we of course want every child to wake up in their own home, particularly at Christmas. But it is incredibly important people know they can keep a roof over their heads, even in the most desperate circumstances. That's why we're making sure that councils can place families in a broader range of homes if they fall into these circumstances. So since 2011, councils have been able to place families into private rented accommodation so they can get a suitable place sooner. We've changed the law in relation to so that families with children shouldn't find themselves in B&B accommodation except in an emergency. And through implementing the Homelessness Reduction Act, we're making sure our families at risk can get support before they find themselves homeless. And I say to the honourable gentleman, I have been very clear, as I was a few weeks ago, that this government is going to be a government that puts a clear focus on housing, on building the homes that people need, on ensuring that people are given help to get into those homes, and also on acting to prevent homelessness before it happens. That's what we're doing. That's what will make a real difference to people's lives.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, the sad reality is that 1 in 100 children in this country are homeless at any one time. It is a national disgrace, and it is getting worse. And for all she says about the private rented sector, can I just quote from a letter I received from Rachel this week? She says, "I have a knot in my stomach every New Year period when we're due to sign a new tenancy agreement. After renting the same flat for 10 years, never being in arrears, and keeping the property in good order, we were given notice to quit out of the blue." Will the Prime Minister help people like Rachel and back secure 3-year tenancies for all private renters?
Well, Can I say to the right honourable gentleman that I think he was present in the chamber when the budget was given to this chamber, and that's precisely why we said that we are looking at ways in which we can encourage longer-term tenancies. Now, the point is, what is important is ensuring that people have the ability to have the accommodation that they need, that they want, and on the basis that is right for them. That's why, as I say, we are dealing with this issue of longer-term tenancies. But he talks about people renting their homes, and his response on renting is to bring in rent controls. Yeah. Now, rent controls have never worked. They result in reducing the number of homes that are available for people who want to be able to have accommodation and a roof over their own head. And it's not just me that says that Labour Party policy won't help people who are renting. Shelter say that it won't help people who are renting.
Mr. Speaker, evictions by private landlords have quadrupled since 2010. There is not security in the private rented sector, and the Prime Minister well knows it. She also promised one-for-one replacement of council housing sold off through Right to Buy. But just 1 in 5 council homes have been replaced. Hundreds of thousands of people are on housing waiting lists. Will the Prime Minister apologise for what she said and tell the House when she will deliver this one-for-one replacement?
And as the right honourable gentleman knows, we are increasing the flexibilities to enable councils to actually build homes. We've put more money into affordable housing. He talks about the right to buy. I have to say, what a contrast. We actually want to give people the opportunity to buy their own home. The Labour Party would take that opportunity away from them. What do we see? What do we see on housing? You know, the shadow housing minister recently said that fewer people owning their own home is not such a bad thing. Well, I have to say to the right honourable gentleman that what he's offering to people on housing, if you live in a council home, he'll take away your right to buy. If you're looking to rent, Shelter say his policies will harm you. And his shadow housing minister doesn't want to support people owning their own homes. It's only the Conservatives that will deliver the homes this country needs.
If only it were true, Mr. Speaker. Under the Tories, home ownership has fallen by 200,000. Under Labour, it rose by 1 million. And 40% of all homes sold through Right to Buy are now in the private rented sector. The latest figures, Mr. Speaker, show that a quarter of all privately rented homes are not up to decent standards, meaning many families are living in homes with damp, that are not secure or very poorly insulated. Does the Prime Minister support homes being fit for human habitation?
Of course we want homes to be fit for human habitation, but can I just remind the right honourable gentleman that the number of homes failing to meet the decent home standard is down by 49% since the peak under the Labour government. And while I'm talking about the record of the Labour government, statutory homelessness peaked under the Labour government and is down by over 50% since then. It's this government that is delivering for people on housing. It's his government that Labour failed to deliver over 13 years.
I would just remind the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, that under Labour, 1 million homes are brought up to decent home standard. I would also assume from what she said she will be here on the 19th of January to support my honourable friend, the member for Westminster North's bill to make privately rented homes fit for human habitation. When it comes to housing, Mr. Speaker, this government has been an absolute disgrace. After 7 years, more people are living on the streets, more families in temporary accommodation, more families in homes not fit for human habitation, and fewer people owning their own home. When is this government going to get out of the pockets of property speculators and rogue landlords and get on the side of tenants and people without a home of their own this Christmas?
Prime Minister.
Under Labour, house building down, homes bought and sold down, social housing down. One thing, I'll tell him one thing did go up under the last Labour government: the number of people on the social housing waiting list. 1.74 million people waiting for a home under a Labour government. We've delivered over 346,000 new affordable homes since 2010. More affordable homes have been delivered in the last 7 years than in the previous 7 years under a Labour government. We're building more homes. Last year we saw 217,000 more homes being built in this country. That's a record. Apart from 1 year, that's a record for the last 30 years. It's the Conservatives that are doing what is necessary. Labour would produce failure for this country once again. It's the Conservatives that are delivering the homes that people need, the economy that people need, and the standard of living that people need.